Sorry to laugh, but yes, I was expecting that question. You can take both. We'll answer together. I found our work was purely in the heteronormative realm, and this was basically because there's not a lot of research on the other sexual orientation in IPV or GBV. So we focused on, when we speak about masculinities, we focused on it very broadly, and we looked at it along on a scale. So yes, you might be the ultra alpha male, but then you might also be the metrosexual moving towards the female male. And so we discussed all types of sexual orientation. The students themselves, although we have such discourse with the students themselves need to identify what masculinity means to them. And we saw journeys with each of them, from a very religious alpha male to one who now embraces condom use and negotiation with his or her partner. And other instances where student engagement, so peer-to-peer conversations where it was like totally cool to catcall, as a woman walks by on campus, to rather teaching tolerance and respect and saying this is not appropriate and it's discriminating against women. And so we've seen shifts in the students' notions of masculinity, and all we could do was actually shape that discourse with them to provide a space for that journey to occur.
Just to add on to that, and specifically in 2013, Haiku and our unit wanted to focus on the issue of masculinity. So for this particular year, through a lot of our work, you will see from the different respective projects, we looked at notions of masculinity, be it in the communication campaign, be it in the curriculum. So there was a specific art elective around masculinity, HIV, and public practice. And then we had a conference which you hosted in September around this issue. So we like to think about different topics each year and to try and go a little bit deeper into those with the students that we work with. So next year we're looking at issues around circumcision, issues around LGBTQI. So there's a whole lot of different. So this is just a snapshot of the kind of work that we do, and we're so happy for you to chat with you after to tell you about some of the other work we do. And the questions around the poverty.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So poverty is an identified strategic initiative of the Office of the Vice Chancellor, and is led by a Pro-VC. And it is dealing with socioeconomic poverty. They have a poverty database on the UCT website which maps all the academic research and programs that UCT is involved with, but it looks externally. Haiku looks internally. So what are our students experiencing on campus? And most of the time it is strongly related to socioeconomic and financial need. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Hi, Dr. Freeman. I'm from Political Studies at UCT.
Hi.
So I come from the other side of student interaction, I guess. And I was just wondering, it sounds like you do a lot of projects with fine arts students, but that is one of our smaller departments within the Faculty of Humanities. With these workshops, with these groups, we have 30,000 students at UCT. What is your actually estimated reach of students you've directly interacted with in this kind of way?
So remember that we've been working in this area for around 20 years, right? So we have to see how we can work with pockets of students in each particular year. So I don't want to say that we've reached this amount of students in this particular instance, because through different means and mechanisms we do. So when we talk about a campaign at UCT and Haiku, we talk about a communication campaign which includes a physical event on the plaza in the space where students are existing. So there's a number of students. Then we talk about interactions in and out of class. So we have interventions not only in the art, that's just one example. Not only in the art department, but certainly in other humanities areas and other faculties across the campus. So different pockets of students again there. And then the resident space is another space where we speak to students specifically around these issues. So some of the workshop interventions happen in the residences, some of them happen in the day house, some of them happen in informal conversations on the campus. So again, the numbers are going to be different because they're different area reaches at that moment. And then we also look at how we can get them to be peer educators in our program, so they're also part of the structure. So I don't want to put a number, a quantitative number on it, because there's certainly different interventions and different campaigns reach different amounts of students. But certainly we try through all our processes to link with existing people on campus to further the message, etc. So we would welcome the opportunity to dialogue with you around these kind of issues in political affairs.
And we also map our reach and our extent. So if you look on the UCT website, there's a mapping HIV/AIDS report which is updated annually, and you'll see the extent of curriculum that embeds constructions of inclusivity, transformation, HIV/AIDS. And I would welcome you to look for that. But also just to say that in the first year, during the O week, the first year students, they all receive interaction with haiku. So that's what, an intake of 4,000. That's
4,000.
one quant we can give you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions? May I pose a question? Okay. Are you planning to implement these projects on a larger scale, and when and to whom?
When you say larger scale, can you define it a bit?
Okay,
Do you
for
mean within the
example,
campus?
With other universities, because I often
Oh,
see
okay.
all these
Yeah.
new projects, different universities do different things, and we often reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
Where something works, why can't we just take it and implement it at our university? I know as researchers we like to start something new so we can get new information. But that is not always, I don't think that should always be the case.
Sure.
We should learn from each other
Sure.
and take it forward. So what are you going to do? And especially our schools, because in some, our students, they get to university and they already have this mindset.
Preconcept, yeah.
And so what do we do with our children at school? Because I think this could work at school.
Okay, we worked with this project for 2 years now, and we've sort of kind of ironed out some of the places where we think we could improve. So certainly what we're wanting to do is we sit as a Western Cape group, we called it Active, our HIV/AIDS unit, and we share the kind of models and learnings from our processes, not only from ours but from other institutions, and we work through those processes. So we're absolutely sharing with our partners. But what we're wanting to do at UCT specifically is work with further education and training institutions. So really look at our institutions that are close by in our proximity. How can we work with them to implement programs such as these in their institutions? With regards to the schools, we're working in the other UCT initiative around the schools project, where we're working specifically with educators around what are your needs in the schools, what kind of programs can we implement there, and so we're working with them to see how they can develop it for their school program.
And the policy that goes with that to manage it within the school environment.
Which schools?
So on our project, we've got Khayelitsha at the moment, and so it's the 100 Up Schools project. So we're linking with the UCT existing project and working with some of the schools in that project.
And then last question, what were the outcomes of your project? What are you doing? Is this working? Are these projects
Okay,
actually
so we
working? Yeah.
chose to not include any of the evaluation specific data on there, but certainly what we're seeing and although I think it's at an individual level, we're certainly starting to see changes in students' perceptions around some of these issues, some of these notions of masculinity, and certainly that's important for us, because the main person around how they change perceptions, how they interact with. So certainly that's coming through. And the other thing which we're seeing, because we interview students who come to the communication campaigns, is this a good way to start educating students? Should we be doing these kind of projects? Should our own students develop the campaign for students on the campus? And certainly a lot of the qualitative data is telling us that we should be doing.
I want to add to that, especially in the curriculum pieces, we have a pre and post assessment. So before we actually work with the students on thematic areas relevant to their discipline, they complete a pre-assessment. So we get an overview of where their knowledge is at, and then I work within the gaps. So then I target what knowledge is lacking. With the students, either his or her constructions about masculinity or about transformation, diversity, or sexual orientation, and we try and grapple with that discourse in the lecture period. And then following that, we do a post-assessment so we can see a knowledge change. Behavioral change obviously is a longer, more expensive project to fund, but that is one of the areas that we're seeing immediate knowledge changes after the intervention. And then also the qualitative data, it adds to that.
Thank you. Another question for you. Do you think that social media escalates domestic violence? Does it appear that way?
Yes, yes. Based on the study that I found, in a way it contributes to domestic violence. Social media network,
Yes.
like Facebook, like Twitter. But most women that I found, one of the studies that I found that was conducted in US, the woman decided to remain on social networking site because she needed to be connected with her family, because she needs support from them as well. So that's the only reason why she remains on social networking site. But aside that, it's a problem onto her, because it might not be a physical abuse, but psychologically, emotional abuse as well, and which will definitely affect the ability to function well in their study, at the place of work, or in their study, or to give their best.
Okay, so what motivated you to do this study?
Alright. Yeah, I've always been interested in ICT, information and communication technology. So I've always been interested in that. And in a way, I was thinking of how, now most times when technology is being designed, we only look at the positive side of it. So at the same time, I felt, as a woman, in a way, ICT is also doing something, is doing some damages. How is it worsening the case of domestic violence victims? Not that I've been involved in anything related to that, but I just felt that is a way to contribute to my society as well. So that was why I went into this research.
Thank you very much. Anybody else like to make a comment or pose a question?
My question to the HAPU team, just to clarify, so the intervention is wholly funded by UCT, so no external funding. And I don't know if you're willing to share it, but your annual budget, I mean, just to get a sense of the amount of resources that go into these interventions, relative to other interventions coming from like the value.
Okay, let me just preface it by saying that yes, the university funds the program, but it gives a limited, very, very, very limited budget towards this project. What you see is an output of very creative team trying to use
Minimal resources
to develop outputs. So it might look like there's a lot of outputs, but certainly, I mean, none of the projects were funded that you see the results of were funded by the university. The students themselves came up with ways to approach other people to get sponsorships to get the project going. So that's really important in the process.
And we also focus on sustainable materials, so making roses out of Coke cans and paper mache. So we try and focus on recyclable materials rather than going to create some plastic ornament of some sort. But yeah, I mean, we also in terms of our operational budgets, we try and minimize our costs. So instead of doing paper-based campaigns, we try and use virtual online spaces so that our budget can be extended and stretched.
And we do work with partners. So if there's a partner who wants to work with us on a specific project, like the LGBTQI, then we would specifically want to work with them. So they would bring maybe additional funding. We would have the ideas, but we work with them around how we can upscale that project. I don't know if Tal wants to add. She's the director.
But I think what's most important is that it isn't added on. So it takes an existing curriculum. There's already a paid lecture. There's already a course code, and says how do we integrate it without more resources, because those kids have to be there anyway, or they have to pop on in a digital space. And I don't think we'd survive in the climate of funding without operating incredibly creatively.
Thank you. One last question, Benedict.
More to, sorry if we're trying to dwell too much in the paper, the PhD student. When you talk about the women, are you talking about teenage girls, or do you have any specific age group or even area like Kailisha or Mirenberg? Because I think both of these, as much as it can be all women, but I think they might have experienced the same violence in a different way.
Yeah, at the moment, I was not really restricted to a particular age group, but my intention is to go to domestic violence shelters in Western Cape. I've been able to identify some of them. So depending on the age group that are in that shelter, So it's not really limited to whether they are 20 years or 25 years of age. So depending on those people that are living, they've been able to escape from their abuse. Yeah, they want to share their experiences, and this is how technology has added to it, and this is how they've been able to benefit from technology. Probably they've used technology to identify the provider, to get support, or also to escape from it, or their partners, even after leaving the place, even after leaving the abuse, they're still using technology to pursue them. Yeah. So it's not really about the age, there's no age limits depending on the set of people living in the shelter.
Thank you, everyone. It's actually interesting to note that all our speakers are women. So men, they don't do gender-based violence research. Right, well, enjoy your lunch. There's about 5 minutes before lunch, and have a good day further.
Thank you.
Thank you.